Welcome into the Dynasty review for the Chicago Bears. The 2023 season's officially over, the regular season, and it's over for the Chicago Bears. Playoffs are this weekend, so we're going to dive into the Bears and just look at the Dynasty outlook for this team as a whole and some of the players. A lot of interesting things to talk about. Brian, what do you think of what comes to mind when you think of the Bears 2023 season or their future overall?
I think their future's looking pretty bright. I mean, I think they only finished one game behind the Vikings, I think, in terms of win-loss record. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. They were tied, actually. 7-10.
I didn't even realize they got up to a tie, so that's good. Yeah, obviously they missed a little bit of Justin Fields this season, and it really showed. It really affected like how the team operated. So I would say hopeful in terms of how I would describe them in terms of fantasy.
Yeah, they're kind of a tale of two seasons. You know, they were not so great start the year. Justin Fields gets hurt. He missed 4 games, I believe. Tyson Bagent took over. And then when Fields came back, this team they acquired some defensive guys in the trade deadline, and they were one of the better teams, like through the advanced metrics and things like that. Like they were their defense really improved. Justin Fields started to play better. And they just kind of fell short of the playoffs. I think they were all the way in the playoff run until the second to last week. So now they have a decision to make because they hold the number 1 pick in the draft. Again, they finished 7-12. Their head coach sounds like he's coming back, Matt Eberflus, which is fine. They have the 7th most cap space, so they can spend a lot of money this year, $62 million. And they have the 101 and the 109 picks. So it's going to be super interesting, and we'll talk about that when we get to Justin Fields here in just a second. In terms of free agents, no one major. Dante Foreman's a free agent, and Darnell Mooney. Those are the 2 big ones. I guess Robert Tonyan, if he's still relevant. I don't really think he is, but it's Mooney and Foreman, which they'll find new teams. So we'll talk about Mooney in a little bit, but with Justin Fields, what do you think? Do you think they draft Caleb Williams or Drake May number 1 overall and trade Justin Fields? Do you think they trade the pick back, get a bunch of other picks and just roll with Justin Fields? I don't know. What are you thinking? Because it could really go either way at this point.
Yeah, it definitely could, but I think tearing it all down and starting over with a new quarterback is the wrong move for them. Like Fields has proven, I think, that he's capable of running the offense. It's a little less conventional, like obviously he runs a lot. His passing numbers definitely showed an improvement this season. And I think he would have hit the 3,000 yard mark passing if he had played all games basically. So I know that's not like a high bar, but obviously he has that huge rushing floor, and that's kind of what makes him attractive. But I mean, he's still got 20 total touchdowns this season. Like that would have been maybe closer to 25. Oh, well, maybe even a little higher than that, actually, missing 4 games. So yeah, I think they should probably try and trade back the pick and kind of build up their team a little bit. I think they need a little bit more going on defensively, especially.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting. If they can trade back and still take Marvin Harrison and you pair him with DJ Moore, that offense could be clicking. You have the 109, all the picks you gather from trading back. If you trade with the Patriots is the team I guess I'm thinking of at the 103. You trade back there, pick up whatever the Patriots are going to give you. Plus, you assume obviously Patriots take a quarterback. Washington takes a quarterback, and yeah, you have Marvin Harrison still. The big thing here, though, is, and I think it's a huge factor, is you're going to have to pay Justin Fields if he's your future. He's already in the well, I have to pay him now. He's just finished his third year. So he's going into his fourth year, and this is when you start to pay these guys. Obviously you have the fifth year extension, but so that's a big thing. I think if they truly believe like Caleb Williams or Drake May's the one, and they can get them for 5 more years on the cheap, not paying them, I think that might be the deciding factor. So I feel like they might stick with the pick and trade away Justin Fields if they can. So unfortunately, in terms of Dynasty fantasy stuff, it's interesting because if you look at keep trade cut, Fields is in like that tier 4 quarterback range, and it's a big tier. It's QB's 9 to 15, and Justin Fields is at the bottom of that. So that's Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, Tua, Jordan Love, Dak, Justin Fields. He's in that tier. And I think it's kind of interesting because I think he probably, besides maybe Kyler, I feel like he has the most upside. Do you think he belongs in that tier? Do you think he's kind of down there just because of the uncertainty of we don't even know what team he's going to potentially be on? Or do you think it's kind of justified that he's behind those guys or in that tier with them?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a lot of the uncertainty is like what's driving that. Like when I see the third tier has Anthony Richardson all by himself, it's kind of like, well, Fields could easily be right there with him, So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of hard to like rank those guys. I think I'd put him, if he does like re-sign with the Bears and they get him like another offensive piece, I think I'd put him above. Definitely, I think I'd put him above Tua. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he still kind of like lives in that area, just given all the names in front of him. So yeah, a little difficult to rank, but obviously, like you said, huge upside.
Yeah, I think out of all those guys, again, besides Kyler, I think he has the most upside. If you look at 2022 season from, the first 4 weeks, he wasn't running the ball and he wasn't playing that well. And then they started to run the ball with him in from weeks 5 on, he was the QB5 that year, averaged 24 points a game. And that's when you get into difference-making quarterbacks. Like if you look at it full seasons, there's not many quarterbacks that get above, 4 point per passing touchdown that score 24 points and above, 23, 24. So he did that for the majority of 2022. The first 5 weeks, I believe, of this season before he got hurt in week 6, missed half that game. He was QB3. So yeah, it's super interesting. If I could tier, if someone, again, like I agree with you, I'd put him above like Tua. I'd take him over in terms of like just for next year, like potentially Brock Purdy, like Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love. I'd take him over these guys like just for next year, but got to factor in Dynasty a little bit there, I guess. I'm happy tearing down from one of those guys, getting Justin Fields and like picking stuff up, extra pieces for sure.
Yeah.
Bagent, hold him for now, but he's just kind of a backup quarterback, and we saw how crazy it was last year with all the, this past season with, I don't know what to call it. Do I call it last year or do I say this season? What do I say? This season, right?
I think you still have to say 2023, just so you're clear about what you're talking about. We're in that weird time.
Yeah, so 2023, you saw the backup quarterback. So Bagent showed something, I guess, enough maybe to hold. Running backs, weird all year long. No one really stood out. No one really was a difference maker. We thought one of these guys would be, but none of them really were. I mean, Khalil Herbert there for a couple games. Dante Foreman had a game. Roshan was just, he was kind of just there, never really a difference maker. Is there any one of these between Khalil Herbert, Roshan, do you prefer? Or obviously we're holding on to both of them, but do you prefer one of them over the other?
Not really. Like I feel like they're kind of in that same sort of area. No one really stands out. Obviously, like Roshan and Herbert over Foreman, given the age difference, is huge, and they're basically going to be on that team. So I don't know. I don't know if you're ever really going to be able to trust one of them if both of them are healthy, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Roshan's interesting to me just because he's a younger guy. I think he's a little more well-rounded. He can pass protect. He caught 34 balls last year. He averaged 4.3 yards an attempt, which is pretty good. So he's always. It seemed like they didn't like Herbert. Like they didn't want him to be the guy. They tried to make Dante Foreman the thing, and then he had like personal issues and. I don't know what happened there, and they kind of were forced to use Khalil Herbert, and I don't know. I hope they do give. They're both going to be there, so. But yeah, hold on to both. Obviously, they both could be. Either one could be valuable. Dante Foreman, I'd probably hold on to him until free agency plays out, see where he goes. If he's the RB2 somewhere, then he's going to have some value for sure. So beyond that, there's no one else. Receivers, DJ Moore is the stud. Darnell Mooney is kind of becoming like what like I like to call a roster clogging receiver. It's like you're just holding on to this guy. You never start him. And if you are starting him, it probably means your team sucks, and like it's just like you're kind of holding him because I don't know. Like, should we hold him one more year, see where he goes first? Like, I think we're holding him because he had a good rookie or second year, I think it was, over 1,000 yards his second year, but hasn't come close to that since. Like, is he just bound to be kind of that roster clogger, just kind of wasting a spot on him, and his value is never going to – it's not going to spike like a backup running back that takes over the job for the rest of the year, like a Zach Moss or something?
Yeah, I think you basically got it there. Like we're not seeing the chemistry with Fields. He's not drawing targets, which means he's probably not. He's not doing what he needs to do on the field. Like, this is going to be his 5th year, and we haven't really seen it. Besides that 1 year where he had 140 targets, and I just don't really see that in his future, especially if it's Justin Fields there. That would basically put him at like a 30% target share. If 140 targets from Fields. So yeah, I think you're okay to cut him. It'd be nice if you could get anything for him, but I just don't know who's trading for him at this point.
I mean, would you even take like a 4th round pick for him and just move on?
Yeah, probably. Just take a shot on something else.
Yeah, the only thing I will say is you could potentially get a slight spike in value. Again, he's a free agent, so what if he just he signs with the Chiefs early on in free agency, and it's like, holy crap, he's on the Chiefs, and you get that Chiefs bump, and now that now you can trade him for like a 3rd round pick or something, rather than just. I don't think I would still trade him even if he went to the Chiefs. Get whatever I can for him, just because. Again, like you said, I don't think he's a huge target volume guy. Like, he kind of has his role a little bit, but so that's the only thing I will say. Like, you could get a bump in value depending on where he signs this offseason.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, there's no reason to necessarily just cut him right now unless your waivers are still open and you can pick up a young guy. But yeah, I can see that, but I don't think it's likely.
Yeah. There's really no one else on this receiving. I mean, Tyler Scott, I think he was a 3rd or 4th round pick last year. He's kind of just a deep threat guy, in my opinion. Just so hard to, if you play best ball, he's like a great player. Not a great player, but he's a nice player to have on your team just because, I think you this coming year, no matter who the quarterback is, you could get a week where Tyler Scott scored 2 touchdowns on 3 Rashid Shaheed stuff. 3 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, but in lineups, I don't know how you're ever going to be able to start him. And yeah, there's really no one else, to talk about here. Like Bayless Jones, who's another speedster return guy they drafted in like the 3rd round, is just not a couple years ago, not playing out. So, and then Cole Kmet, he's just a nice tight end. He's a step above like those guys I call the 4 for 50 guys. Like he's definitely a step above those guys. He's still relatively young, not even 25 yet. It looks like they have him in the tier with like Ferguson. And it's a weird tier. They have Njoku, Kittle, Kelsey, Ferguson, Kmet. It's a very strange tier there. I mean, a mixture of old guys and, I'd obviously take Njoku, Kittle, Kelsey, but Kmet's a fine tight end. I don't know if there's really much to talk about here with him.
Yeah, not really.
So pretty easy team. The big thing is Justin Fields and where he goes. So, do you think his value changes really? Like, do you think it gets better? Like, if he got traded to the Falcons, do you think he just kind of stays where he's at in that tier of those 7 whatever guys that we mentioned in that 4th tier? Do you think he can get a boost from going somewhere? Or, I mean, obviously he'll drop if he's like a backup, but I don't think that's going to happen. Do you think his value really changes if he's on the Bears or the Falcons, or name another team that needs a starting quarterback, the Giants, name another team that needs a quarterback? Like, does it change at all?
I don't think so. It's funny that you picked Atlanta, because it's like, I think the situation would be pretty similar, except they might have more of a run game there. Ideally with Bijan and even with Algier as the second RB. Because I mean, I don't think Drake London's nearly as good as DJ Moore, but it's like, yeah, he was taken as the first receiver a couple of years ago, probably for a reason. Maybe we just haven't quite seen it yet. Maybe better quarterback play will unlock that a little bit. So he could be the DJ Moore for Fields. Like his hyper targeted guy, and then obviously Kyle Pitts could, we want Kyle Pitts to be at least what Cole Kmet did this year. So
yeah, I think the combination of London and Pitts is probably a slight step above Moore and Kmet, just because of Pitts over Kmet. I agree with you. I think Moore is a better receiver, but I don't think he's leaps and bounds better than London necessarily. But yeah, it's interesting. I really don't think it changes unless he gets traded like San Francisco or something, and he's just like the backup. That would suck. But yeah, we should know. We should know pretty soon. I mean, by I don't know. I actually have no idea. Like, I don't even know what people would trade for him. Like, what do you trade? Do you trade like a 1st-round pick for him? Like, is he worth that? Like, you have to pay him? I don't know. It's a lot up in the air for sure. So,
you're talking about Fields?
Yeah, like a real NFL. I'm just thinking, like, what is this?
No.
What are people going to trade for? Like, I think of like, obviously Trey Lance was a different situation because he never really played, but he was the 2nd, 3rd overall pick. And he went for a 3rd or 4th rounder or something like that.
Yeah.
Obviously Fields has played and looked good at times, but again, you have to like pay him. So that has to be into consideration. Like I think it'd be crazy to be like, I don't know, the Titans and trade the 7th overall pick for Fields when you can draft another player and get 5 years of him and cheap, whether it's a quarterback or not. So it's just hard to know what his value really is, I guess, and what teams are going to trade for him.
Yeah, he is kind of in that in between the space between spaces kind of a thing. Like,
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see where he goes. But I will say, because there is so much question marks around this team as far as like the run game and Fields. It's like, if you feel strongly about one of these guys, it's like, now's the time to go get him. Like Fields, I can't imagine his, like you were saying, like his value is not going to go down. Like same thing with like the running backs. Like, well, I mean, that can definitely go down, but it's like, they're probably cheaper now than you'll be able to get them after the draft, depending on what happens, obviously. So better shoot your shot if you feel strongly about like Roshan being the guy or something, or, Fields, no matter where he goes, like, because I agree with you. Like, I think he is going to play somewhere. So you might be able to get him slightly cheaper. Like, you won't have to overpay to acquire him right now, given the question marks.
Yeah, it kind of feels like Kyler a little bit. I mean, a little different because you knew Kyler wasn't going to start the season, and Fields should start the season starter. But it kind of feels like a little bit of like, oh, I could get, a potentially elite quarterback that's fallen off less due to his play and more due to other factors, right? Like, Justin Fields at one point was a top 10 dynasty quarterback not too long ago, as early as October. He was in the QB 11, so of the last year of 2023. So, and he was as high as QB 8. So yeah, it feels like a little bit Kyler Murray-ish. But yeah, I think that's it for the Bears. Be fun to see what happens. If they trade Fields and he becomes like a stud, if they don't trade Fields and Caleb Williams is the next Patrick Mahomes, like it's almost like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Yeah.
Unless they make the right one, I guess. But yeah, that is it. We'll be back talking about the Patriots. Yay, Patriots. But yeah, we'll be back as always. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys then.